Hi, so today I'm going to guide you through the process of sewing the Munna and Broad undies. So I have two pairs of undies cut out today. I have a pair that I'm going to make with fold over elastic and a pair that I'm going to make with picot elastic. So I'll show you how to do both. I'm also going to show you how to sew them either on just your normal sewing machine with a zigzag stitch and also on a serger. So don't feel that you need to have a serger in order to sew these undies. So I've cut out my pieces for the undies, and then I also have my notions here. So this is what we're going to use for the waist elastic for both pairs. This is 1 inch wide fold over elastic. So this is a little bit hard to get, but it is really great. So I would highly recommend trying to get that. You can see it's really kind of beefy, I guess. It just holds your underwear up really well. So we're going to use that for the waistband of both pairs. For the fold over elastic pair, where we're going to use the fold over elastic on the leg bands, I'm going to use this 3/4 inch or 20 millimeter fold over elastic. You can see that it's just a little bit, I guess, a little bit less strong than the wider stuff. So this is the wider, and if you look on the back of the wider elastic, it's more like just like normal elastic that you put in a waistband, whereas the other side of the narrower elastic is it's just a lot thinner. So it's going to be great around the legs. It makes for really comfortable leg openings. If you absolutely can't get the 1 inch, then you can of course use this on the waist. It's fine. But honestly, once I found the 1 inch, I just stopped using this narrower stuff around the waist. But you can certainly use that if you can't find anything else. For both the fold over elastics, you can see that there's a kind of woven in part that makes it easy to fold. And I have pressed it just to encourage it to fold in half. That's a completely unnecessary step. I hardly ever do it, but since I'll be demonstrating on this video, I thought it might be best if I did it totally the best I can. So for the picot elastic pair, we're going to use the fold over elastic at the waist, and then picot elastic on the leg bands, on the leg openings. So I have this one here. So it's just like a 1/4 inch elastic here with the nice picot edge. And then I also have this kind of other picot edge. It's kind of cool. I thought it was fun. It's a little bit velvety. So I'll decide which one I'll use later. So I'll show you how to do all of this. So here are my pieces cut out. I have my back piece, my front piece, and my gusset here. So if we take a look at the gusset, we have our front edge here and our back edge. So we can tell it's the back edge because it's got this kind of corner shape here. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to overlock this front edge here of the gusset. If you're not using an overlocker, if you're just using the zigzag, then you don't need to do this step, just skip that. So I'm going to go do that and be back and show you how to pin the gusset seam. Right, so now I'm going to prep the gusset seam of the underwear. So I have my front piece here, and I'm going to lay that down right side up. One of the frustrating things about sewing with some knits is it rolls, but that's okay. So I've got my front piece with the right side up, and then I'm going to take my back piece and place it right side down on top of there. So just going to match those up. Kind of unrolling that front gusset piece as best I can. I'll do it again when I pin it. So it's right sides together, and then I'm going to take my gusset piece and I'm going to do that with the right side down. So I'm going to pin that together. So I'm just aligning everything here. Placing a pin. So I think the trickiest part is actually the unrolling of this jersey. Some jersey rolls up more than others and some does it less. So once you this is probably the trickiest one to sew because you've got 3 layers. You can see I accidentally have a little slit there because I was trying to cut this out of scraps, but it'll actually be fine. Just making sure all those 3 layers are together. Okay, now I'm going to sew that gusset seam with a 1/2 inch seam allowance, 1/2 inch or 1.3 millimeters. So if I'm serging, I'm going to actually make sure that my furthest left needle is aligned with this point here, which will be at 1/2 inch. Or if I'm doing zigzag, I will just align the left hand side of the zigzag with that point. So I just wanted to show you the size of zigzag that I chose for the zigzag stitching. So it is a stitch width of 2.5 and a stitch length of 2. So I did a test sample here on some black so you can just see it a little bit better. And so you can see it's still got some stretch to it, which I want obviously because it's a stretch seam. But then if I open it up to see from, you know, if I were opening up the side seam, you can see that the stitches are still close enough together that they're not going to, like, you know, pull apart too much. So that's how I found that stitch. So I've sewn the gusset seam using the zigzag on one pair, and I've sewn the gusset seam using the overlocker on the other pair. So I have that like this, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this gusset piece and I'm going to flip it forward and flip it so that we have our back here. This is the gusset. And the front here. So you can see what happens is that just nicely that just encloses that gusset seam so you won't actually see that. So the next step we're going to do is just zigzag this gusset piece down to the front. You can leave it free and you might have some underwear that actually has an open front of the gusset. I don't like that myself though because like lint and stuff catches inside it, and you know, we could have done another seam here, but I don't like that either because I don't want to have like a bulky seam there. So I find that the smoothest finish is just to zigzag it down. So I'm just gently aligning my gusset so there's no lumps or bumps. And I'm just going to pin it to the front piece. So that's the overlocked one pinned and ready to sew. For the one that I did on the zigzag, same procedure. So I'm just going to lay it down with the right side down of the back piece and the right side down of the front piece. And you can see I haven't finished that at all, but that's not a big deal. I'm going to just smooth it down and pin it. Just trying to align those edges as much as possible. Okay, so I'm going to zigzag this front gusset down to the front of the underwear. I'm going to use a wide zigzag this time. So my machine goes up to a width of 5. I'm going to use a 5 and a length of about 2.5. Okay, so I've zigzagged. This is the one with the overlocking. I've zigzagged that down, and then this is what it looks like on the right side. And then this is the pair that we didn't overlock. And so it's just zigzag down. This is the inside and the outside, so it still looks really nice. So the next step is we're going to stay stitch these gusset pieces together. Don't skip this step because it's very aggravating to not catch both your edges of your gusset in when you're like sewing the leg bands on. You have enough to think about when you're sewing the elastic on. So you can pin it or just go ahead and stay stitch. I'll pin it just to show you what we're going to do. We're going to do a very narrow zigzag, just close to the edge here. So matching those gusset edges together and really close to the edge. So I'm gonna probably go for about a 2.5 zigzag with maybe a slightly longer stitch length. It's just to hold it in place. So maybe like a 3 stitch length, 2.5 stitch width on a zigzag. I've stay stitched that gusset, and now I'm going to sew the side seams. So I'm going to put my underwear right sides together, overlap those side seams and pin them in place. So I'm going to sew, I'll pin the other side seam, and I'm going to sew that with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So you can either use your serger or you can use the zigzag on your domestic machine. So either way, sew up all your side seams. So I've sewn those side seams and it's beginning to look like a pair of underwear. This is the pair that I've zigzagged. And I'm actually just going to clip back that seam allowance a little bit. It's pretty big, and I made the seam allowances big so to just ensure that you didn't, you know, so it's easier to make sure you catch all the layers together, especially for that gusset seam. I'm gonna live dangerously and use my rotary cutter to trim that seam back. Just making sure I'm not cutting off the seam. So I've just trimmed that back a little bit. Do that on the other side. Whoops. It'd probably be easier if I didn't have such a huge ruler, but that's what I've got. Okay. Great. So at this point you can try your underwear on and make sure that everything is working out the way you want it to. Just be careful you don't stretch it too much, but you can at least have a good idea about how the fit is for you. So go ahead and do that, and next we're going to apply the elastic. I'll show you how to do that over on the sewing machine. So here we are at my sewing machine. I have my top edge of my underwear here and my 1 inch wide fold over elastic. So I'm going to start on the left-hand side of the underpants, and I'm going to just align that top edge of the underwear with the line of the center line of the fold over elastic. Pop it here, and I'm just going to put a pin in. And sorry if this freaks you out, but that's the only pin I'm going to use. You can't really pin this, in my opinion. This is my method of doing this. Elastic application I think it's the only way I can really get it to work well. If I do the procedure where you make like a loop and then have to pin it in evenly distributing the ease, it just never works. I get kind of bunches and flat bits, and yeah, it drives me crazy. So this is the way I do it, and I hope that it's doable for you. It's a little bit, you just have to get used to how much stretch you're going to put in. I kind of have a good, I just put like a moderate amount of stretch in, as I'll show you. If you've selected the underwear that's the right size for your hips, then this should follow that it will fit pretty naturally. But put it on, try the underwear on and see how you go. So I have my zigzag set at the widest possible. So for me, that's a 5. And I'm going to with a stitched length of 2.5. So I've just got my elastic there. I have to apologize because I'm trying to sew with the camera in between me and what I'm trying to sew, which makes it quite hard to see. So I'm aligning that edge of the elastic about halfway through this part of my foot. I don't want to sew like off the edge, this edge of my elastic, but I want to make sure that it is near to this this edge of the elastic. So I'm just going to anchor it down and remove that pin. Okay, now, so if I had a machine where I could set the needle to either finish up or down, I would do that now, but I don't. So I'm just going to do it manually. So I've got my needle set in the down position, and what I'm going to do is hold the fabric so it's smooth, but give the elastic a bit of a pull. So you can see it's pretty stretchy. I'm not going to pull it to the max. I'm going to give it like a moderate pull. I'm just going to fold it in there so it's got a bit of stretch in it. I'm folding it, aligning the edge of the fabric inside there and pinching it over the top. So there's a bit of tension on this elastic, but none on the fabric. And I'm going to sew. Okay, I'm going to do that again. So give the elastic a bit of a pull, align the edge of my fabric into that middle, fold it over, and sew. And that's what you're going to do all the way around. So moderate stretch, align the fabric without stretching it, and fold over. It's important when you do this that you don't stretch the fabric. If you stretch the fabric as well as the elastic, then you're effectively not putting any stretch in the elastic. So I'm just going to continue doing that all the way around. So I'm almost back where I started. So I'm just going to finish off by overlapping that, but not trimming my elastic. So just going to give it a bit of a stretch. And I'm just overlapping this as nicely as I can. Just trying to get a good overlap here. We'll give the best finish I can. Just overlapping it a little bit and then back tacking. Okay, so I haven't trimmed the elastic. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a bar tack, and I'm going to do a bar tack just vertically down here. So I'm just setting, if you have a bar tack function on your machine, you can certainly use that. I'm just making sure that this is nice and pulled down to make it as even as possible. So I'm just pulling that down. I might actually pop a pin in there. Getting pretty thick. Okay. So I'm just going to do my bar tack. And then I'm going to just trim the elastic off close to that bar tack. And that's the finish there. If you're going to do fold over elastic on the leg bands, then you would do exactly the same thing, same procedure as that waistband, but using the narrower elastic. So again, just folding it over and zigzagging. So if you're doing the picot elastic finish, I'll show you how I do that. So the picot has two edges. It has the flat edge and it has the picot edge. So I'm just going to go onto my underwear. So this is the right side of my underwear. Essentially what we're going to do is apply the elastic onto the outside and flip it to the inside, so just the picot scallops are showing. So you can place the end wherever you want. I'm going to just align it with the edge of the underwear here. I've got my zigzag set on a width of 5 and a length of 2.5. And I want to align it so that my left hand zig or zag, so my left hand side of my stitch lines up as closely to this edge here as possible. I'm just going to anchor it there. And then kind of like we did with the fold over elastic, I'm just going to give the elastic a bit of a stretch, but not the fabric underneath. And hold it there and then sew. And I'm going to keep doing that all the way around. So giving the elastic a moderate stretch, not too much, just a moderate stretch, holding it in place, not stretching the fabric. Going to continue doing that all the way around. So one more thing I just wanted to mention that I forgot to mention before is one of the reasons that I really enjoy doing this elastic application without pinning it is it allows you to customize the amount of stretch in each part of the underwear. So for example, you know, if you'd found it was maybe digging it a little bit on the front of the leg openings, then next time you sew it, you can put less stretch in there, or you can put more stretch in the areas that you want to kind of bag out a little bit, like maybe in the butt. So that's why I like that. Okay, so we have sewn our picot elastic there, and you can see it's given us a good amount of kind of gathering there, and it's nice and stretchy. So now we're just going to flip the picot to the inside. You can see that it just the picot is showing, and that's because we sewed it with the left hand side of the zigzag exactly against the edge of that elastic piece. So I'm just going to place it under my presser foot. So I'm still using a stitch width of 5 and a stitch length of 2.5, which is what I used to attach the picot elastic. So this time I am going to stretch the fabric. So you can see it's puckered here because the elastic's doing its job. I'm going to pull it slightly to the left just to make sure it's smooth there, and just pull it enough to flatten out the fabric. So I'm not overstretching it. I'm just stretching it to where those puckers relax. So I'm on this machine, I'm running that edge of the fabric along this edge of my presser foot. Okay, so that's the underwear finished. So this is the pair that I made with fold over elastic on the waist, the wider one, the 1 inch, and then the narrow one around the leg openings. And I overlocked this one to finish. So really like the way that the fold over elastic feels against my legs. It doesn't bind at all, and it's a close up, if I can get it to focus, on that band elastic finishing, so with the bar tack. Then we also have the pair that we made using the picot elastic. So again, the wide fold over. It's hard to get a good photograph, honestly, of the picot elastic. Oh, there, focus now. But because it's, you know, it puckers because we want it to go around our body. So anyway, it's a really cute finish. I kind of like it in this maroon and black combination. So anyway, I hope that you enjoyed making these underwear with me, and share your makes so we can see what you did, what colors you chose. Bye.